okay? So they get all excited, and they go back to Jerusalem where the other disciples are hanging out, and they tell them what happened. And then, poof, Jesus appears there, and they're like, whoa, a ghost. They thought it was a ghost. But he's like, yeah, it teleported. Yeah, just like in Star Trek, right? Something like that. Anyway, so he's there, and they thought, oh, he's a ghost. And they were all scared. And he's like, look, does a ghost have like skin and bones, And they let him touch him and stuff, or he let them touch him. And they realized, oh, it's really you. It's Jesus, So then there's a lot of eating in the Bible, I've noticed. Because he eats again with these people. Not grilled cheese. He has fish. But what do you mean, ew? Fish can be good. But anyway, give it a chance. Anyway, now I lost my train of thought. Oh, wait, yeah, he's eating. And I noticed in this church, I grew up in this church. I've been going here since I've been the youngest one's age, whoever that might be. I've been coming to this church. And we like to eat. Anytime there's something that happens, there's food. So I think it's the brethren way. But we're really just following the Bible, because they're always eating in the Bible, too. Anyway, that's not my point. So then Jesus starts teaching them about the Bible, about him. He goes through the scriptures. Back then, they just had the Old Testament. But he goes through and shows them every place that predicted him and pertained to him, because his coming was predicted a long time before he came. So then their understanding was open, right? And they understood, and he's like, okay, now you go and teach other people. So in that way, they had like an aha moment. Now here's where I don't know what Pastor Laura is going to preach about, but it says open ... into the light, okay? So I'm thinking that Jesus told his disciples to go out and preach the good news and teach other people how to be disciples. So therefore, they're going out into the light. Maybe it might be a stretch. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, also I thought light. They had an aha moment. What happens in a cartoon when someone gets a good idea or if they realize something? Light bulb. They get a light bulb over their head. So I think the disciples got light bulbs over their heads. And like, wow, okay, we never saw it that way. So the moral of the story is, oh, wait a minute. I got to tie in the food thing. Sorry about that. You know how you didn't notice, or you didn't know exactly what I was making for lunch until you got all the clues? That's kind of the way the disciples are now. Jesus gave them all the clues that they are like, oh, they understood a lot better than they did before. And they are able to go out and teach other people. So there you have it. And how can we, let's apply that to our lives, how can we grow in understanding and get to know Jesus better? Give me some ideas. Just shout them out. Don't be shy. Okay, where are we at right now? Hey, church is a good thing, yeah? And what else happens in this building? Well, we eat, yeah. We do eat. Oh, I was going to say, that does work, fellowship, because we have like fellowship 30 or whatever after this. So, fellowshipping, church, read the Bible, sing, Sunday school, pray, and there you go. Those are some ideas that we can grow closer to Jesus and then learn to how to treat other people and to teach other people, show other people Jesus by the way we act, really, is how we should do it. Anyway, will you pray with me? Dear God, thank you for this day that we could be here together. And learn and get to know Jesus. And share that love with other people. In Jesus' name, amen. Good job. Now I have a treat. Now you must ask your parent or guardian when you may eat this. These are one of my favorite candies growing up. The caramels with the sugar in the middle. Yummy. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. Okay, so as you go out, you may have one. Maybe I'll give you two apiece. How's that sound? And if you want, you could share it with someone. You don't have to, but you could. There you go, sir. Yeah, there you go. Oh, there you go. Oops, there, I got it.
What a children's message, huh? Let us stand together in body or in spirit and sing our next song, Are Ye Able? Verse 5 only, and we do not have the red hymnals. So the lyrics will be on the screen. Are ye able still, the Master whispers down eternity, and heroic spirits answer, now is then in Galilee. Lord, we are able, our spirits are thine.
The story of faith is not one of arrival, but of journey. The new butterfly's struggle to push out of its confines produces a fissure that cannot be undone. There is no going back. The journey to a new existence has commenced. The post-resurrection story of Jesus opening the hearts of his fellow travelers along the road to Emmaus, invites us to be companions of the one who will open us into the light of a new day. From Luke chapter 24, verses 28 through 35. As they came near the village to which they were going, he walked ahead as if he were going on. But they urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, because it is almost evening, and the day is now nearly over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, blessed it, and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. They said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the scriptures to us?" That same hour they got up and returned to Jerusalem, and they found the 11 and their companions gathered together. They were saying, "The Lord has risen indeed, and he appeared to Simon." Then they told what had happened on the road and how he had been made known to them in the breaking of the bread.
So, you're watching a 2-hour movie. It began with a crime being committed. For an hour and 45 minutes, you have been paying attention to every single clue. The writers are clever. You have been misled by false clues. You have been misled by credible but inaccurate theories pursued by some of the detectives or news reporters or family members in the movie. The people watching the movie with you have been actively engaged in solving the whodunit mystery. But the writers are clever, and your companions along with you have not been able to figure it out. You're watching the clock. Now only 5 minutes left in the movie. You know that the whodunit is about to be revealed, but you want to get there first. You want to figure it out, and then suddenly you do. Aha! It all makes sense. And before the crime is solved, you blurt out the guilty party. It was the butler in the library with the candlestick. And 2 seconds later, the writers reveal the truth. It was the butler in the library with the candlestick, and you go, yes, 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 I knew I could do it. I knew I could figure it out. Anybody here ever have that experience before? Mm-hmm. Don't want to burst your bubble? It's not necessarily if you have, it's because we're brilliant. It's because the writers are clever. And they know if they can get you to the conclusion just a half a second before it shows up, that we all walk away feeling, I'm pretty clever too. Maybe it's not a movie. Maybe it's a crossword puzzle clue or a jigsaw puzzle piece that you've been looking for, or a challenge at work, a conundrum. Something that needs to be found or solved or fixed or changed, but the answer is not immediately obvious, so you look closer, you read an article, you watch an instructional YouTube video, or you ask someone for advice, but what you're really doing is reframing. When at first you can't figure something out, you have to reframe it. And to reframe something, you have to stop looking at it one way and try to see it in a different way. And you keep doing that and doing that and doing that until you finally figure it out. Yes. Artists are good at reframing. Artists have the ability to take an image that we have seen 1,000 times in a particular way and help us to see it differently. So do writers and prophets and teachers and architects and engineers and moms and dads and children. Children can reframe the world for us, can't they? And preachers and pastors and politicians and protesters and people. All of us have had experiences where we have helped someone to see something different, hopefully in a better way. And all of us have had experiences when new light has shined on something, allowing us to see it differently. But it is so easy to resist reframing when it comes to our own thoughts, our own perspectives, our own conclusions, and our own ways of doing things. Because we spend a lot of time figuring out our thoughts and perspectives and conclusions and ways of doing things, so we can be, rightfully so, pretty resistant to giving them up on a whim. I know I can. If I take a hard position on an issue, someone will call me stubborn. But others will call me steadfast and dependable. And if I'm quickly willing to change my perspective on an issue, some will call me open-minded. Others will call me wishy-washy or untrustworthy. Anybody ever had any of those experiences before? Anybody here ever been called stubborn? Come on, raise your hand. You can be honest. A couple people sitting back there going, nope, I'm too stubborn to raise my hand to say I'm stubborn. I'm not asking whether you are stubborn, but has anyone ever said that you are stubborn or bullheaded or stuck in your ways or unreasonable? Now, unreasonable, what that actually means is that your reasons don't match theirs, right? The story that Sandy read to us a little bit ago from the Gospel of Luke, and Steve did it. I thought the rapture had come and we were left. You just know they'd take Steve. The story that Sandy read to us a little bit ago is about two disciples who were kind of stuck in their ways. It's Easter Day, but they don't know that yet. All they know is that Jesus was killed a few days before, dashing all their hopes and dreams. And so they left the city. Maybe they're heading home. They're clearly discouraged. They thought Jesus was the one to redeem Israel, which cannot be done by a dead Jesus. They had hoped, they had seen the Messiah, the hoped-for Messiah, killed before. But they hoped that this time Jesus was different. They are stuck in their understanding of how things are supposed to happen. So Jesus joins them on their journey home, and he tries to reframe the scriptures for them to encourage them. And while they may have been intrigued by his different way of seeing things, you don't get the feeling that they were fully convinced. And finally, they arrive at their destination. Middle Eastern hospitality required that they extend an invitation to have supper and to stay the night, and so that's what they did. The words that the gospel writer chooses here are incredibly revealing. He writes, "As they came near the village to which they were going, he walked ahead as if he were going on. But they urged him strongly, saying, 'Stay with us, because it is almost evening and the day is nearly over.' So he went in to stay with them." There is a tension here between Jesus' forward movement and their desire to stay, to hunker down, to dig in. Jesus has been walking with them, but as they grow close to the end of their journey, ready to go back home, to give up, to settle back into the way it has always been, Jesus starts to walk ahead of them. Jesus isn't interested in staying in the same old ruts of understanding. And Jesus shifts from being a mere companion to becoming a guide, a mentor, a leader. But they urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us." So the gospel writer says that he went in to stay with them, but did he? Not for long. He goes in, they sit down together to eat. Jesus picks up the bread, blesses it, breaks it, and gives it to them. And then the gospel writer tells us that in that moment their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. Poof. Like a transporter. You see, Jesus didn't stay. He went in, but he didn't stay. And then the two disciples say to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us as he was talking to us on the road while he was opening the scriptures to us?" And then it says, and this is their shift, that same hour they got up and returned to Jerusalem. The story begins with two disciples stuck in their understanding of how things were supposed to happen, giving up, leaving the stage of action, going home discouraged and frustrated because things didn't go their way. Then Jesus comes along and reframes their way of seeing things, gets them intrigued, but still they stay committed to their former thoughts and ways. The blessing, the breaking of the bread was the trigger, the aha moment, the point where they go, yes, the moment where they see. And whereas they thought that the movie was about to end, they realize in that moment that it was just beginning, so they get up and go back onto the stage of action. But they are not the same. They have been changed. Have you ever had a moment or a series of moments that have changed you? I have. Too many to tell about this morning. One of the earliest and most significant spiritual transformations for me was my baptism. It was a sunny day along the banks of Linville Creek, surrounded by family and church family at the age of 13, that I walked into the waters to be dunked 3 times by the pastor. It was a good day with lots of hugs and words of joy and blessing. But it was in the, hours, days, weeks that followed. I can't tell you when it happened or began to happen, but I began to wonder, what did I just do? And much of the rest of my life, youth group, college, seminary, 35 plus years of ministry, has been an attempt to understand and live out my baptism. Getting baptized changed me. And it keeps on changing me. Sometimes change for me has come at the darkest and most difficult times of my life. A crisis of faith can bring about a huge change. No one wants to go through that, but often it is what brings about the most significant and the deepest changes in us. In these times, our simple definitions of God get tested and sometimes crumble. To use an Old Testament metaphor, we go into a wilderness experience where everything seems strange. Nothing that we have known or experienced so far makes sense or brings us peace, and we have to struggle, complain, fight, even distance ourselves from God, or at least from the God that we thought we knew. But if we hang in there, somewhere in the struggle, a new light begins to break in. A couple of weeks ago, I spoke on the topic tombs and catacombs. I used the example of the caterpillar, the tombs and cocoons. I knew I messed that up. I used the example of the caterpillar, the cocoon, and the butterfly, where the cocoon is like a tomb, or at one place I said the womb of the tomb, and I pointed out that the caterpillar does not make a cocoon, it crawls into it, but the caterpillar becomes the cocoon. And that everything that is needed in the cocoon is already in the caterpillar, and that also everything that is needed in the butterfly is also in the cocoon. Do you remember? Within a few minutes of the end of the service, my son Noah came down to reframe my understanding of nature. He's smiling now. He said, "Dad, butterflies don't come from cocoons. Moths do. Butterflies emerge from chrysalis." I didn't know that. I said something like, "But chrysalis doesn't rhyme with tomb or womb." A really good point for a preacher. But let me get it right this time, knowing that if I don't, someone will reframe my understanding. When the chrysalis begins to tear open and light begins to penetrate upon the emerging butterfly, there is no going back. The butterfly cannot reclose the tear. Sometimes when change comes upon us, we want to ignore it, deny it, refuse to accept it. We want to crawl back into the way things were before. But there is no going back. There is only going forward or dying. When that chrysalis begins to break open, the emerging butterfly is not a butterfly yet. Or at least it cannot fly yet. Its body is too swollen and its wings are too shriveled. For hours, that emerging butterfly will struggle to get through that tiny hole in the chrysalis. And if you've ever watched one try, the struggle is so difficult that you might want to help it along. You might want to cut the hole just a little bit bigger. But if you do, the butterfly will emerge, but it will never fly. The struggle forces the fluids out of the swollen body into the shriveled wings, allowing them both to emerge and fly. The struggle to change is hard. It requires effort on our part, energy that has been stored quietly in one part of our being must be pushed into other emerging parts of our being. What we thought was settled may need to be disturbed, drawn upon, even depleted in order for something new to emerge.